We got the great Pace Morby in the house, ladies and gentlemen. My God, to get the man, the myth, the legend in Skorch the Fears. Wow, that is pretty incredible. It's a big day for the podcast. It's a big day for Pace too, because he's never been in a place where I'm the leader for once. So it's good. He's in my zone now. Out of all the Zooms I've been on. So welcome to the podcast, man. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, bro. I was just telling you right before the show started, I was like, out of everything on my calendar, this is the thing I was looking to the most. I have a lot of really cool things going on this week. So thank you for having me.
I love it. No, it's super cool. I mean, like it's just insane. Like I'm thinking back, just even before I get into the podcast, just thinking back, I had the other day, I was talking to Jamil about this too, about just being like, man, how far like it's been, like, just like my relationship with you just in general, like all the Zooms, all the people that I've seen you help, the people that you've let me help basically by being a leader in the SUBTO. So just before we start, thank you, my man. Thank you for being a mentor, great guy.
The good thing about a leader is I don't have to let you do anything. You are a natural born leader. You just do it, you know, and it's been so fun watching you become a different person, evolve into an absolute badass. And then, I mean, you've changed everything about yourself, which is cool. You even live in a new part of the country. You've got a freaking podcast now. I mean, if anybody should have a podcast, it's you. You got stories on stories on stories on stories. I mean, your podcast should be Jonah interviewing Jonah. You know what I'm saying?
That would be wild. I don't know how long I could talk for. I don't know if I could do that. That would be wild. Yeah, man. I mean, you were the one who got me into it from the mastermind nearly a year from this one. I think this is number 49. So like I started it almost a year ago. So yeah, man. I mean, you were the spark. You're the spark to the scorch. So
ooh, I love it.
Something, right?
and shout out to all the people that are watching live. I've got Adriana Rodriguez, who I adore here. So good to see you, Adriana. You're amazing.
Yeah, I love it. So, all right, I got to start it because I'm the leader here. So, Mr. Pace Morby, at one point in time, you were not the great Pace Morby that everyone's like shocked and awed to see you, right? So, like, what was your greatest fear when starting out?
My greatest fear has never been what I have to do. My greatest fear has always been not doing as much as I possibly can on this earth. I have a fear of missing out. I have a fear of not failure, because I have like no fear of failure. I had a fear of like, oh my gosh, am I ever going to figure this out? Am I ever going to, get anything done? Jonah's having technical difficulties, guys. It's great.
Yeah, I know. It's annoying. Can you hear me right now?
It's all good. This is what happens in real life podcast, guys. This is what you
I'm just going to let you talk.
So for me, the biggest fear I've always had, I remember when I was driving down State Street in Utah, I was 8 years old. And I remember hearing my dad say, get into real estate. They're not making any more of it. And then I found out later it was actually a famous quote that he was paraphrasing. And I was like, yeah, I got to get into real estate. And then fast forward, my dad owns no real estate. My dad's not into real estate. And my dad basically he filled all these bookshelves. I've actually never answered this. So this is interesting. My dad and my mom have always had some sort of conflict in their marriage, because my dad would go out and buy all these self-help books, like the Tony Robbins, the Donald Trumps, the, Sell or Be Sold, and all these kind of books. My dad literally has a library of nothing but self-help books. And my mom is always like, this is so stupid. It fills up our whole house. And my biggest fear was like failing the woman that I marry, that I would learn something and not apply it. Right. And maybe there's some deep seated trauma in the back of my mind of like, if you learn something, you better put it to action, because if your mom's not happy with that, then there's no way another woman's going to be happy with it. And I'm a mama's boy. And so I think I had fear of letting my mother down. And that is where my implementation comes from, so much as I fear disappointing my mom. I fear disappointing my wife. I fear disappointing other people around me. And so that's really where my fear comes from. It's never been about, I'm afraid to call a seller. I'm afraid to do this. I honestly can relate to it, because I get nervous around it. Even still to this day, I get nervous. Like I drove to a seller's house today. I don't know why this detail is so important, but it is an important detail. I drove 45 minutes one way and 45 minutes back another way today without any underwear on today.
Nice.
So
Nice, dude. Love
I
it,
have no fear of doing anything. I will just get things done.
bro.
Literally spent half my day
We're
today saving somebody from foreclosure with my balls swinging around and no underwear. So it
yeah, yeah.
was
We're turning that into a
absolutely
TikTok, is what I'm
horrendous.
saying. Okay, so then, like, I just want to go back. So you were saying your greatest fear was like learning something and not applying it to your relationship. Was I right about that?
No, just in general. I watched
Okay.
my mom and my dad's relationship, and I watched my mom make comments about my father to his face, like, well, why are these books taking up this room? Like, this book and that book. And if my mom would say things. She wasn't nagging. My mom was actually, even in a loving way, just trying to like remind my dad, like, hey, maybe you should like, you read about real estate all the time. Why are you not going out and investing in real estate? My dad bought all our houses that I grew up in subject to seller finance lease options. But my dad never went out and like bought other assets with any of the money. My dad would like hit a point of comfortability. My dad was never broke. That's for sure. My dad just got to a point where he was comfortable. And then he got to a point where he's like, all right, cool. I'm making a couple $100,000 a year. And he never went beyond that. So that's another fear I have. I'm legitimately so grateful of my father, but I'm also very fearful of ever becoming like my parents and having a life anything like my parents.
I gotcha. I gotcha. So it's interesting because this is something, now that I've done this podcast and asked this question a lot, I've noticed there's two types of fears.
Mhm.
There's the fears, all of your fears sound like this type, and this is why you're so successful. There are fears that are behind you, and then there are fears that are in front of you. So fears that are behind you are the ones that you're talking about, like where there's a fire on your ass, like where it's like, I see my parents, I need to do everything not to become them. So I have to push forward, or I need to, like I have to apply things that I learned, right? While
Yeah.
like the seller ones are fears that are in front of you that are like, oh, now I'm like hitting a wall instead of a fire burning forward, right? So I'm curious if A, you've thought of that at all, or B, like how did those fears manifest in a way other than pushing you forward? Were there any roadblocks that happened in your business because of those fears?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Great question. Yeah. I think about that all the time. Like I do have fear. I just have a different type of fear than most people. And of course I can relate to the nervousness, the anxiety and stuff that people have about whatever, but I'm like, we all know math, right? Like we know 1 + 1 = 2. So we also know not taking action and spending time equals a shitty life, right? So like we already know that. And if 1 + 1 = 2 is so reliable, right? And we can really understand, we know that that's going to spit out a number 2. Like, why do we even have to question that action is something we have to do in order to live that life? So I'm not driven to have a lot of things or like have the nicest watch or the whatever. I am driven to not be a failure, if that makes sense.
It does, but it's interesting too. Like, why? Like, I get, like, nobody wants to be a failure, but also a lot of people don't have your drive to be that successful. So is it like the trauma from your parents, you think, or what do you think it was, or it is?
That's a good question too. I don't know. I feel like this is a therapy session, which I like. This is good.
That's my point. That's what I do.
I like this. This is really good. Let's think about this. I think that I have an unbelievable drive. The things that get me excited are the things I continue to seek out. So here's what drives me: a thirst for knowing things other people don't know, because I remember what it was like not to know powerful things. Right. The thirst to help other people, because I remember what it was like when nobody wanted to help me. The thirst of changing other people's lives, because I remember when people wanted to put their thumbs on me and control me and keep me in a certain position. So when you find that new knowledge and you get the emotional income and the proof of concept of helping other people and how it circles back to you, you want me to give you a really good specific example of how things circle back to you?
Sure.
Really small things. I could go back 10 years, 20 years, 15 years and like really, really get nitty gritty on this. But like, I'm so motivated to help other people because I know it comes around. It's as reliable as 1 + 1 = 2.
It's a law.
It's a law. It is an absolute law. And we all know it. It's just that we're not constantly applying it. So let's do this. I meet Cody Sperber years ago, like 10 years ago. Okay. A long time ago. And I was like, this guy's done a lot for me, even though he's never known me. And so at some point I'll repay the favor, right? Like always give credit where credit is due. And so when Cody, you know, we ultimately ended up becoming friends. That's not what this story is about. Cody asks me, Pace, this is back in September of 2021. Okay. September 2021. So a year and 3 or 4 months ago. He calls me and he goes, hey man, can you come to one of my events and speak all about creative finance and be on a panel and do all this kind of stuff? I go, yeah, I'd love to. And he's like, really? I go, yeah. And I'm like, why you act surprised? He's like, cause I know you're busy. I'm like, bro, you have done so much for me. Let me do whatever I possibly can, even if it's like this little thing. And I go, I show up, I do my thing on stage, but like, that's never really where I serve the most. I mean, I do well on stage, but I go in behind the scenes and I talk to people in the hallway and I become friends with people in Cody Sperber's world. And I spend the whole time propping up Cody Sperber. Like, wow, you guys are lucky to be here. This is amazing. Cody, isn't Cody great? All the things. And what ends up happening is Cody goes, dude, you want to speak at Thrive? I go, yeah, go to Thrive. Do the same thing there. I make friends with all of their people. I prop him and Cole Hatter up and I prop, compliment. I'm so good at compliments because I see the good in every single person and all the little itty bitty things. And I'm just hanging out with people in the thing and they get really good feedback. Then Sperber calls me and he goes, hey man, you want to headline at Clever Summit? I go, yes, I'd love to. And then what do? I bring a massive amount of people to Clever Summit. We turn it into the SUBTO Summit, basically. Yep. Have the greatest time of all time, bring tons of value to him. And because of that, Cody then introduces me to a guy who then puts me in a situation where today I'm making, I think this month from being involved in those guys, like that Cody introduced me to, I'm just from that one relationship, I made like $500,000 this month, just from that one relationship. Last month it was like 480. The month before that was like 425. It's like, I'll make $5-6 million this year just because of people that Cody Sperber introduced me to, because of the law of reciprocity of giving, and people feel compelled to give back to you. And I would have never, ever thought that was an opportunity. And it just comes back. If I sat down and explained to you 25 things I have going on in my life, it all started not with me going, all right, I got a business idea. Let me write down a business idea. Literally every dollar I make every single day comes from me going, let's create a list of people that I can serve and somehow I can provide value to them and make them look good. Here's another example. I meet Vina Jetty through Cody Sperber from Clever Summit. I go to Vina Jetty. I go, how can I make you look amazing? How can I give you props? So like even this last week, I spent 40 grand. I know maybe you don't care about this stuff, but this is stuff that's like fresh on my mind. I spent 40 grand getting a bunch of my elite investors together, their flights, their hotels, limousine, dinners, all that kind of stuff. And I put a multifamily masterclass on for my elite investors, like people that invest a lot of money in me. They were just over the moon over the whole thing. We just had such the greatest time spending time together in Dallas for the last 2-3 days. But what was I really doing there? I was giving them value. Yes. Hanging out with them, developing relationships. But really what I did is I put together a multifamily masterclass and my team, I flew my team out, we recorded it, and my whole team will chop it up, put it together for and go, here you go. Here's a masterclass that you can give away for free to people on your social media, your YouTube, your Facebook group, or whatever. That basically is worth like a $15,000 mastermind. And she was just, why would you do this? Why would you do this? I go, because it's the law, right? It's the law. I know this will show up in a massive way. I just don't know where it will show up. And she, look on her social media. She's like over the moon about like these people have put me in a position to win. They called me a winner before I was winning. And it's just the coolest thing ever. And that is one of the things that drives me, the emotional income of seeing people change their lives and elevate to another level. This week I put Carolyn on stage in front of 400 people in Dallas. I text her, I go, you're going to be on stage tonight. I'm taking part of my time away to put you on stage. I did the same thing for Alejandro Alvarez, and I'll do the same thing for you, Jonah, because I'm like, I get such
Love it.
strong emotional income from seeing you guys win.
I
So
love
like,
it.
that's what motivates me all day, every day.
I love it. So I got a question for you though, because I know your story. I don't like people. We could like you have so much content on this already. Like with, I think you call them Voldemort. Like people who've used you when you've had this type of attitude. And I think it might be a question you've gotten before, but I've never heard it because I already know. Because I'm thinking for people not like you, there are certain people who are go givers. I'd consider myself one. You're obviously one, right? Where like it's just kind of natural to them. But there are moments where you get used. And so I'm curious on that sense of, I have two questions for you. One is, do you always give always? Or do you have some differentiating factors? And then let's start with there. I don't want to
the filter is give first. The filter is give first, let them filter themselves out. Okay. Voldemort was the greatest lesson in terms of my giving personality that I had to learn. I had to learn that just because I'm giving to somebody doesn't mean they're going to get back to me.
Right.
And he did give me a valuable lesson that I moved on with. But dude, I'll give you a good like example of stuff that happens to me all the time. I get people that ask me to speak on stage for them because they know that I draw a good sized crowd, right? I fill seats, and they will have me come out, and then why do they do that? Now I'm on stage. So what are they doing? They're trying to sell a product, right? So they use my face to sell some product that they have, 25 grand, 30 grand, or whatever it is. Bro, I don't want to get paid on their product because I don't want to be involved in their fulfillment or the brand. I don't want to be involved in their stuff because I don't have any control over their fulfillment. But you don't even get as much as a text message from half these people after you just bring 500, 700 people. I just spoke in another state. I won't name it because somebody will pinpoint it and they'll text these people. Bro, I haven't gotten a text or a call from the people. I got a standing ovation in that room. I've never had a standing ovation
in every room.
No. I mean, you get people that like cheer for me coming in, but like a standing ovation to the point where it's like, get back on stage. What do they call that? Get back on stage. Encore. I got an encore. Yeah. These guys don't even text you and say, thank you for spending 3 days away from your family and friends. All they do is they look at you as a cardboard cutout. So I go, okay, I'm going to use your brand and your face and your this and your reputation and everything. And I'm going to steal the value from it. Go charge these people $30,000, make all the money, and then forget you even did that for me and not even send you a fudging text message.
So how do you stay positive with that? I'm curious because like that could get pretty annoying. I mean, you obviously have given so much that it gets back to you anyways, but how do you stay positive? And I'm speaking for the people who haven't given yet, right? Because the person who thinks this stuff, I think, would be someone who hasn't tried out the law yet. But I am curious because there are moments, even with me, much smaller examples, where it's like, all right, I spent 10 minutes on the phone with you, Mr. New Person, and then I never hear from them again. So how do you like
filter it?
How do you not get filter / not get any down and just be like, whatever, that's them. I'm not going to let it affect me.
Okay, so here's a good example. This is a great question. Okay, so first and foremost, how do I not get down when somebody takes advantage of me? You want to know how? Like specifically when I speak on stage and somebody doesn't thank me for like bringing a massive crowd, because there's a lot of ungrateful people that you guys see as on brands. They seem so amazing on stage and they seem so amazing on their social media, but then when you get behind the green room and you get into like parties with them, you're just like, wow, you are a blood-sucking, money-hungry, you don't care about anybody type of person. And here's how I stay positive. I look at every speaking engagement as an opportunity to do what? You won't guess it.
Okay. Well, my guess is, let's give my guesses anyways. My guesses would be to meet the other speakers who might be still something you could make money with, and or keep growing your own audience. Those are my two guesses.
Like that guess. That's like, I would say that's number 2, maybe number 3. What I would say is number 1 every single time is an opportunity for me to do my own meetup that night or the night before with my own students and get to know my students. I get so jazzed. Like, for example, I was at this multifamily event not too long ago, really great event. And they had Vanilla Ice in the VIP thing and, Ryan Serhant and all these like really cool big names. And I chose to do the freaking SUBTO meetup instead. I do it all the time. They're like, where were you last night? I'm like, I'm with my people. And so I look at these in speaking engagements actually not as an opportunity to speak, but as a way to get in front of my SUBTO students and what I would consider our family, our SUBTO family that you've been such an amazing, gracious go-giver inside of. Any opportunity I can spend with them, I will take that opportunity.
Yeah. It's pretty fun too. Like, I mean, we were hanging out in Atlanta and I saw you in Phoenix really recently, but the Atlanta SUBTO meetup was fun. It was cool. It was like, I mean, you're also like a celebrity there too. Like, I bet that, I mean, I don't know if that boosts your ego at all, but like, I see you, it's like, oh, he's getting rushed by the crowd type of thing. But
that's been going on for a long time. Like well before I was a coach, well before I was whatever. When you take these paradigm shifts that you go through and you condense them, like think about this. You could do this easily now, Jonah. Think about all the things that took you 6 months, 4 months, 5 months, whatever amount of years to learn these little tidbits, like how to pull a list, how to call a seller, how to negotiate, how to fill out paperwork, all these things that like some people will stress out about how to fill out paperwork for 6 months before they feel comfortable with it. So if you get really good at teaching people and you can condense that knowledge from 6 months to 6 days, people really adore you because the grateful, amazing human beings, they recognize what you and I recognize, right? Which is every single day is worth billions of dollars, really, if you think about it. And I always use this analogy of like, let's say I'm dying. I'm on my deathbed. I'm about to die. I can hear the heart monitor slowing down. People in the room are all these loved ones, and I'm 98 years old, whatever. And I'm like, man, if I could just have one more day, if I could just have one more day. And some guy comes in, he goes, hey, I'll give you this magic, potion to get one more day back. He starts handing it to me and he goes, oh, hold on. But what would you pay for it? What would your answer be? Your answer would be everything. I will pay everything for one more day back. And so when somebody says that and they truly understand the power of every day that you have on this earth and that you were able to save them 4 months of those days or 6 years of those days or whatever. I just met a student in Springfield yesterday. He made a goal. He joined SUBTO in February. He goes, I'm going to make a goal to buy 4 rentals every single year via SUBTO, seller finance, whatever. He bought 20 this year.
Right.
And he had his wife, his kid drive like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours to come see me. And he goes, I had to personally thank you and like to your face. So I'm not famous. I'm not famous. What I am is I'm an emotion that people feel when somebody can condense a learning curve down so tightly and deliver it to them. They just are there to thank that learning process and realize like that's the thing that changed their life. So I don't look at myself as a celebrity. I look at myself as just a dude that's really gotten his balls kicked in so many times that he's gotten better at teaching and teaching and teaching to the point where I can condense things down. And people are like, you saved me 6 years of my life, 5 years of my life. And they want to thank this teaching process that I have.
I love it. So let's go back a little bit because I'm curious about this, right? Because you weren't always a teacher. At one point, you didn't have SUBTO. I mean, like you had been doing real estate investing for quite some time before it. Like, what convinced you to do that? And was anything holding you back? And I'm asking this personally because I've had people being like, man, can you mentor me? Right.
Yeah.
And my initial response is like, no, I don't have time to mentor you. Right. Like, honestly, like that's what I have because like a little bit is personal is being like, okay, I can't spend 30 minutes on the phone with everyone. I've been thinking about doing something for other people, maybe making a course, but I want to hear your story also so that I can see where I might want to go, because I've had people like, part of me is like, damn, maybe I should just make a mentorship so that I have somewhere to send people. I'm just curious, what was your story? Was it something similar, or like what's the origin story of SUBTO?
Here's the thing. People don't watch courses. Courses are for horses.
Was about to say something else.
It's just a bunch of horse shit. Courses are horse shit. Nobody cares about courses. Okay. You ask any SUBTO student, what's the value of SUBTO? It ain't the course.
Of course.
Okay.
Half of them didn't do it.
Most of them don't do it.
I did it. I'm a course guy, but
okay. Most of them don't do the course. What do they really value? We all value connectivity to another human being that's actually going to show us along the way. So I personally believe that the reason why SUBTO is the greatest community and Astro is really, really close behind us is because Jamil and I had a vision from the very beginning that did not have coaching involved. I'll give you a story. So this hat, ironically, I'm wearing today with you. This hat, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, Jamil and we've been coaches 2.5 years. That's it. Right. 5-6 years ago, Jamil and I were collaborating, doing a lot of stuff together. And Jamil goes, man, we're traveling around. We're helping people. We're going to these speaking engagements and doing all this stuff. We should like formalize this. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, let's call it something and let's go on tour. And we called it Pace and Jamil Do America. This hat is 6 years old. And we call it Pace and Jamil Do America. We had one goal. And the goal was to show people that Pace and Jamil know how to collaborate with each other, even though they're competitors. So we spent, I think this is like 2017, we spent like 80 grand each flying around the country. And we would go to these RIAs. Okay. We'd go to like RIAs, we go to whatever, wherever people would have us. Right. And I remember we had this guy named Zach. Shout out Zach Weist. Okay. Zach Weist. Good, great guy. He picks us up in his like really beautiful car from the airport. And he's like, all right, guys, so we're going to do this thing. I got like 300 people showing up to see you guys. This is years before we became a coach. And he goes, what are you guys going to charge for? Let's come up. What product are you going to push? And I was like, what? Huh? People do that? And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And it was really interesting. We left that RIA really thinking about like, do we want to be coaches? And the answer was absolutely not. We don't want to be coaches. I don't want to sell things. Like I already know how to do real estate. Why do I need to sell knowledge on real estate? And so here's what ended up happening. I continued to go around the country. Even when Jamil was too busy or whatever, I would go around the country and I would speak and I would do whatever. Like just this last 5 days, I was running around the country by myself. Jamil wasn't with me because sometimes we're not together. So we're all over the country. I was doing this thing 5-6 years ago where I was driving people around in my Prius on weekends, helping them out. Right? You've heard this story. And
Circle K.
Brent Daniels comes to me. He's like, dude, what the hell are you doing? Who do you think you're actually helping? You're not helping anybody. And he then tells me like, come to Florida, come meet with me, Tom Kroll, Chris Arnold, and a handful of other like influencer guys that sell products. And I was like, it's not my thing, Brent. Like, honestly, I'm doing great in real estate. I'm well known here. People are starting to know me nationwide. I just want to do JV deals. Right. And I was like, Brent was a friend of mine. So I went and it opened my eyes to a lot of things, mostly things I don't want to do. Okay. I never want to have a conversation about how do I fill a funnel for people to pay me to coach. I never wanted to ever have that feeling in my life. I don't want to sell a product, right? So I repelled against it. And then what ended up happening is I meet Josiah. Okay, Josiah is my partner. You guys don't know about. You know Josiah because I know Josiah Keegley. And so Josiah comes to me and he goes, dude, you really should be a coach. You're one of the greatest storytellers. You're one of the greatest teachers. Like we watch what you're doing. You've got a brand, like you've got a golden brand. This is like years ago, right? And I go, no, I'm good, man. Like if I was ever going to be a coach, it would have to consist of like 50 things. And he goes, well, what are those 50 things? And I was like, I guess I was an exaggeration. I don't have 50 things. And he goes, well, write them down. What would make you happy to be a coach? And I go, okay, one, I don't want to be a coach. I want to build a community of people. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I created this big old laundry list of things. And it took a meeting with Josiah and our other partner that nobody knows. His name is Nick Fisher. Nobody knows Nick Fisher. He's our other partner. They're like so behind the scenes. And then one of the things I said is I just want to be Elton John, man. I want to write the songs. I want to be with the people. I want to create the energy. I want to be the songwriter. I want to prop people up and I want to change their lives. I want to turn leaders into, and half of what I told them, they're like, nobody's doing this. This isn't possible. It's not physically possible. Blah, 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 blah. I go, I want a mentorship that never ends. I want to, if somebody's going to, and I'm like, more importantly, I want a mentorship that doesn't pay me any money. And they were like, what? And I go, I think a mentorship done right. Now, here's an interesting conversation. I'm going to pretend like nobody's here, okay? Here's the problem. Because I've had people that wonder this, like, well, if you really just wanted to help people, couldn't you have just done this for free? No.
Yeah, I know the answer to this one.
Impossible. Jonah, you're part of masterminds. Can you not agree that the more masterminds or even the higher level money you spend, the better the quality of people are?
It literally, that's the whole purpose of it. That's the reason why you spend the money, is to filter out the people. That's literally, in my opinion, the whole point of spending 40K on a mastermind, is to be around people who can spend 40K on a mastermind. That's like the entire purpose. For SUBTO too, like, it's not 40K, but it's also people just don't care about things that they get for free. Like,
yes.
They just, it's something about psychologically where, like, once you have to pay for something for you to value it at all. If SUBTO was free, then nobody would care.
Nobody would care. It would attract the free crowd. And then also, we couldn't afford to pay 50. I think we have 55 employees at SUBTO that support SUBTO, which is bonkers to even think about. And so, like, I go, I want all these things and I don't want to be paid for it. And they're like, well, how are you going to make money? I'm like, I'm going to make money by putting deals together, bringing my education that I'm going, I spent $150,000 in multifamily education the last 3 years. I'm part of masterminds right now in multifamily. And you guys are starting to see me talk a lot more about multifamily as I get more and more into multifamily. And I bring that back to my SUBTO students, which ultimately brings more deals to me. We raise money together. We do deals together. Like, my elite investors, all of them are SUBTO students.
Right.
I create an environment where everybody wins together, and I do get paid. I get paid. I make more money from my mentorship than any mentor makes from their mentorships, and they actually take the money. My partners, Josiah and Nick, were set up strategically to take the money.
Right.
Intentionally. And I make more money than them.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, how I see it, like, in my opinion, SUBTO, like, the power of having literally, like, at least 50, probably more plus people in every single city who are, like, badass real estate investors who you can, like, hang out with and, like, do deals with and then refer other people to. Like, just that power in and of itself, let alone even if there were no JV deals, which obviously there are going to be, that in of itself, you can, like, I can see how you can utilize that in 15,000 different ways because you give so much. I absolutely love it. So my question to you also is, like, because this is something I've heard you talk about a lot, is like your fear of you not being good enough, right? That's like a very common one for super successful people. Are you over that? Do you still deal with that? And is it something that's a constant struggle? Is it something that you eventually were just like, screw it? Like, what? Tell me about that.
That's an interesting conversation. I can tell you, I've never been successful on my own. I can't do anything on my own. Right. So I already know that. I already know that I can't do anything on my own. When you're young, you believe you can. And then you get older and you realize, holy crap, I've never made $1 in my life without another human being. Like, literally, it's physically impossible. So the difference is the quality of the human beings and the quantity of those quality human beings, and getting around as many of them as you possibly can. And so once I figured that out, I have zero fear. I have zero fear of not being good enough, because now I just stand next to the person that is good enough and I automatically become good enough. It's the weirdest thing. Okay. So, like, multifamily, why do you think I'm spending all this time with Tim Bratz, Brandon Turner, Vina Jetty, Brad Sumrock? I'm spending all my time and energy around these guys. I'm flying around. I literally spent $50,000 to get other people to be in the room with Vina Jetty the last couple of days, so I could be in the room with Vina Jetty the last couple of days. Right. And so I'm like, I have no fear, because I know that I can put myself in a room that ultimately her vibe, Brandon's vibe, Tim Brott's vibe, it all rubs off on me, and I become a small aggregation of all of those human beings. How can you be fearful when that is also a law of nature?